Tether coins have bought up a ridiculous amount to the tune of 100 tons of gold in 2026. No one has talked about this, Zach. Everyone's talked about China. China's bought for 18 consecutive months. China's bought. Poland has decided, we've talked about this before, to by the end of July have 35% of their entire reserves in gold.
Introducing Zach Davis and Josh Anderson with the Sound Money Podcast.
And so I just want to jump right in, right? Hey, if you've been listening to us for the last 5 years on different platforms, you know that we've said that gold was going to overtake treasuries one day as the reserve currency of the world. It was inevitable. And this past week, first time ever in the United States history since we started issuing bonds, that gold actually overtook treasuries. Now 27% of all global central bank reserves are in gold, not in treasuries. Up from 20% before. That's 850 tons bought just this year alone by central banks, surpassing the US Treasury for the first time, and now making the US Treasury, Zach, the number 2 reserve currency in the world, no longer the number 1 reserve currency. What are your thoughts about? I mean, we've been saying this is going to happen for a long time. What are your thoughts around gold overtaking and surpassing U.S. Treasuries for the first time ever as reserve currency of central banks?
History repeats itself. You can't be this irresponsible with spending as a country and as a global world. Like, you just can't be this irresponsible and not think that it's going to not catch up with you sometime. I mean, it is the thing that everybody wanted years and years ago. It is the thing that everybody wants now because it is real money. And it's not, I mean, when you think about a U.S. Treasury, what is the U.S. Treasury? It's just debt. And all it is when you buy the treasuries, it's backed by the good faith of the government, right? Saying, hey, we're going to pay you, but man, look at the debt they're racking up. Nobody has faith in the U.S. Treasuries. Nobody has faith in any of the global currencies. That should scare a few people.
That should absolutely scare people to death that that treasuries, first time since Nixon took the world really off the gold standard, when he took the dollar off the gold standard, first time ever that gold has surpassed the treasuries in the reserve currency. And when central banks vote with their own dollars and say we're going to store our value in gold more than treasuries, it should, like you say, Zach, it should terrify the common man and woman who unfortunately is bought into this idea of storing their value in pensions, 401ks, retirement plans, mutual funds. All those things should be a little bit terrifying today with this new switch of gold becoming the number 1 backed asset in the world, overtaking treasuries. Like you say, we've known it's going to happen, but the reality is it hadn't happened. But now the central banks have changed that. And
go
ahead.
And I think what's interesting about that is, in the last year, you've even seen a slowdown of central banks buying gold because they've been liquidating, not at a faster rate that they've been buying, but they've also been liquidating, which has put some down pressure on the price, right? That's part of the reason why the price of gold has come down. But they're so broke that they're having to sell their gold to get cash to back the treasuries. That's a problem. Now, thank goodness they were smart enough previously to buy up all this gold, but it makes you wonder, how long can they keep the game going? Like, you have to have money to buy the gold. And if you're liquidating gold to back the treasuries, at some point that intersection crosses and you don't have the cash to buy the gold anymore. And now you're just having to liquidate.
Yeah. And I mean, I've not seen this anywhere in the news, right? We have our investigators that work for SoundMoney that scour the world to see what's going on. They're not looking at what the media says. We actually have insight into know who's buying from the U.S. Mint, who's buying from the largest mines, and who's buying from the largest refiners in the world, right? We've cultivated these relationships for a decade, and so we know where the metal is moving, right? And no one has talked about this, Zach. Everyone's talked about China. China's bought for 18 consecutive months. China's bought. Poland has decided, we've talked about this before, to by the end of July have 35% of their entire reserves in gold. Turkey has done the same, a similar situation, right? We've talked about how India put a giant tariff on gold to slow down the buying, which, by the way, they say has started the largest smuggling of gold this month that's ever been known since the pirate times, Zach, because there's such a smuggling problem in the last 2 weeks in India with people trying to smuggle in gold around the tariffs. But this is what nobody's talked about. I want your take on it. Stable coins, right? What are stable coins first, right? Stable coins are coins that are tethered. We usually call them tethers. They're tethered to something like the US dollar or the Chinese yen or the British pound, right? They're digital currency that are tied one-to-one to a currency. Okay, that's why it's a stable coin. Here's what's crazy. I have not seen this anywhere except for our research team, Zach, that Tether coins have bought up a ridiculous amount to the tune of 100 tons of gold in 2026. So why, Zach, dive into this for a minute. Why are stable coins like USDT, right? Why are they buying 100 tons of gold right now?
Which, by the way, they have now become the single biggest buyer of gold. They are buying even more than the central banks. So if look, I'm not going to die on the hill of cryptocurrencies are bad, right? Like there's a place for them, but you have to wonder, if crypto is so awesome, why are these stable coins and why is Tether buying up so much gold? Because again, they're doing the exact same thing that the US Treasury is doing, and they're doing the exact same thing these central banks are doing. They know there's a shift. They know there's a major spending problem. And what it tells you is they don't have confidence in the US Treasuries. Because if they're buying gold at a 1-to-1 ratio to back their stable, I mean, we call it a stable coin because it's supposedly not volatile, right? And it's tied to the US dollar. So if it's tied to the US dollar and it's so stable, why is Tether now the single largest purchaser of gold above the central banks? That tells you they don't have any confidence in the US dollar. Like the writing is on the wall. Like they don't have any confidence.
They don't have any confidence. When we saw what Tether was doing, right? We compete against Tether for metal, right? So we know when we buy and we know when Tether buys. Like we're in the space, right? When we started to see the amount of gold that they started to buy, we went, oh my goodness. A stable coin tied to the US dollar does not believe in the US dollar as a store of value to hedge against inflation. And they can't have inflation or they're going to get crushed, right? So they're buying up gold. Isn't it amazing? Your original comment, history repeats itself. We used to be on the gold standard. A bunch of idiot politicians trying to line their own pockets and to rip off the rest of the world and not pay their debts to places like France and China and all these others. Took us off the gold standard. Humans by nature are going back to it through things like the stable coins, buying it in order to have the value, or places like us at SoundMoney going, hey, we're going to go to Sound.money. We're going to buy gold and silver, and we're going to store it in its physical form so that we have protection. We have real financial protection. And I just think it's amazing that governments and companies can try and do all they want to deceive the American people, to cheat the American people. But there's always some really wise people in our country who go, hey, I'm not doing that. I'm not storing those green $100 bills. I'm going to store gold, just like the central banks and just like now the stable coins of the world have to do in order to keep their coin alive. They have to do it. But nobody's talking about it. Have you even seen that in the media, Zach? Anywhere? No. Have you seen it anywhere?
No, well, no, because I mean, all these countries, they want their citizens to have confidence in their in their currency, because if the citizens lose look, the only reason that the currency actually works is because the citizens have confidence that the government will actually make good on the debt or the tender. And so when the citizens lose confidence, the whole thing upends. And that's when you see these currencies crash. So all these countries are trying to tell their citizens, hey, our currency's good, the economy's great, everything's hunky-dory. But then when a country like India goes and puts a 15% tariff on any imported metal, what are they telling their citizens without telling their citizens? They're saying, we have a major problem, and we don't want you spending your money outside of the country on gold. Otherwise, our currency is going to crash. Canada just did the same thing. I think there's a tariff on a tax on Canadians now when they buy gold. So
it's ridiculous. They're trying to oppress their people, and thank goodness that enough people in the world now have their own eyeballs to see that there's a better way. There is freedom out there. So I just say this, Zach, last comment on the gold and silver market for the week. If freedom for central banks, if freedom for stable coins comes through gold and silver, what should the average household do?
Ought to be buying some. Ought to be buying some,
especially in a hot inflation market, right? We know they just came out and said inflation's 4.2% this year. It's on a heater. Hey, no better time to own gold and silver than when the price has been reduced and inflation is high. You're going to see a bump. Hey, these are simple things. So,
I think JPMorgan is still predicting $4,900 for the end of the year. So, I mean, right now, if you're buying gold right now, you're buying at like a 20% discount off of its high, and it's going to go back to its high and then some. Like it just is. You can't have this much buying. You can't have things like Tether doing what they're doing, central banks doing what they're doing, governments doing what they're doing, and not have immense pressure on the price of gold going up. Like it's inevitable.
It's a good time to be a stacker. It's a good time to be using platforms like SoundMoney. It's a good time to be buying collectible gold and silver coins. It's a good time to be a buyer. When the economy sucks and life's tough, that's when you win. You can cut out something in your life, and you can dollar cost average. You can buy a little bit of gold and silver every month. And if you do, you will be just like the hundreds of thousands of people we've done business with now that do business with us, who send us thank you letters, who say, I'm so grateful that I made the conscious decision to buy a couple $100 a month. It's made all the difference for me in my moment of need. And for all our listeners, right? Those of you who are doing it every month, maybe it's with our Wealth Builder program, or maybe you're just buying it from somebody else. We don't care. You're going to win.